legends lay on the ground, his head resting on his arms and his eyes closed, his mind lost in tranquility. As I opened my eyes, I saw a boy kneeling on the ground, his hands clutching his head that touched the ground as if it was splitting in half, and his wails could be heard everywhere in the sewer system. Ah! Seeing him lose his mind in confusion and denial made me shake my head in disgust. Humans are as fragile as a fried leaf, yet they pretend to be as tough as a tree. I watched the boy for a good minute before his body lost strength and his voice died, though I doubt it will last. Sure enough, after another half a minute, he slowly stood up. My tails couldn't help but wave around in anticipation as he rose to his feet. Father. Suddenly, I recall Father's words and my duty. No, our duty, the grand mission of the tailed beasts. I shake my head to get rid of that bitter memory. When I looked back at the boy, I saw his tear-soaked face. His eyes looked dull, his skin turned pale, and his lips formed a flat line. I wonder if you will be the same as others, I thought, and a figure slowly manifested inside my mind like a ghost haunting the living. 9 tails, a woman said to him while sitting with her legs crossed and eyes closed. She had red hair tied into 2 buns and 2 ceiling tags with kanji symbols were tied to her hair buns, and a blue rhombus marking was engraved on her forehead. If you use your power, only hatred will come from it. Stay tranquil deep inside me, she said as she slowly faded out of the mindscape. 9 tails, then, another figure appeared with her eyes staring back at him without a trace of fear. Like the previous red-haired woman, she had long red hair that flowed to the back of her thigh. Neither of us have any sort of luck, do we? You keep the world at bay. But I keep you at bay, she said as she crossed her arms before slowly fading out. I snapped out of my thoughts when I heard a splashing noise. I turned and watched as the red-haired boy slowly walked toward me. His eyes looked lifeless, but a trace of hope swam inside those immature lavender eyes. His hand formed a fist in determination, and his steps were solemn and firm. Finally, he reached the cage separating the 2 of us and looked up at my figure, his eyes showing defeat and helplessness, his red hair slowly waving around as if alive. 9 tails, he said, and my tails started swinging around faster. Here it is, I thought, and waited for his statement, though I expect him to be just like the previous 2. After all, he is an Uzumaki just like the other 2. You and I are the same. My tails froze mid-swing and my eyes narrowed. A low, deep growl unexpectedly came out of my throat, but the boy's fearless stance reminded me of his mother. We both didn't want this fate. I didn't want you to be inside of me, and I assume you don't want to be inside of me either. The boy touched his abdomen and chuckled. Since we're in the same boat, why don't we become partners instead? He suggested and looked at me with his crystal-like eyes that seemed as if they would shine if I kept looking. Aren't you lonely? I'll stand by your side and share my heart with you. Aren't you brimming with hatred? I will take your hatred and change it to compassion and love. After all, no one will love me because I house you, but at least we can become friends. When the boy finished talking, he raised his arm to me with the brightest grin I'd ever seen. He's different, I thought. Is he crazy? Yeah, he probably went crazy. Who in the world would want to be friends with the one who caused all your suffering? Not only that, I'm infamous for being evil and the embodiment of hatred. Such a thoughtless person, I laughed mockingly. I don't need your pity friendship. When you grow up, you'll want to strangle yourself for even thinking of becoming friends with me. Despite saying that, I retracted my chakra from his body out in the real world. Humph, I'll show you. The boy's annoyed voice reached my ears, but I ignore him. One day, I'll become your partner, I promise. The mindscape went silent for a few moments, but I knew that if I open my eyes I will see the boy sitting in front of the cage. One day, well, I hope you don't disappoint me, I thought. Then, a glowing blue string floated out from my head and shot toward the red-haired boy. When the string connected inside the hot blue orb inside his head, I let out a smirk. Let me see if you are worthy. As I lay inside the cage with my eyes closed, I listened to the boy's inner thoughts. Such a foolish boy. Hey, I'm not a fool. However, when I realized that the giant fox never opened his mouth, I swiftly closed my mouth and pretended as if I didn't just shout. Sure enough, the fox looked at me in ridicule. What was that? I swear I heard him talk. Look at him. He's already going crazy. Quote. This time, I didn't reply and pondered about what is happening. Can I hear his thoughts? When thinking about this, I stood up and opened my mouth, but before I yelled at him, I forcefully shut my mouth. If I said that I can read his mind, he might say that I'm crazy. Again, I sighed and slumped back down, mulling over how I can convince the stubborn fox inside me. What happened? Seeing the dissipating red chakra around the boy, Hiruzen watched with extreme caution. I don't know what's happening, but that fox is cunning. Stand alert. Hiruzen ordered, and the ninjas around him instantly tensed up. They were all Anbu elites, and even the sealing teams were the best from Konoha. Thud. When the boy fell motionless on the ground, Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. He was a seal expert as well, though not a seal master, but he can still sense the seal on the boy's abdomen was starting to calm down. A minute later, the sealing formula, 8 trigram seal, fully stabilized. Sealing team, double-check the seal on the boy's abdomen. Yes, sir. Seeing the sealing team get to work, Hiruzen sighed and waved his hand. O.S.H. Anbu, bring me Danzo Shimura. Tell him to stop watching from the sidelines, Hiruzen commanded, his face cold and his eyes merciless. He is the Hokage. It's only natural that he knows everything that's happening inside the village. When he sensed Danzo's chakra appear on top of the Hokage monument, the missing puzzle piece was found. I had a hope that it was just an accident, but it seems I am getting old and lazy. Danzo, you are too overbearing. Hiruzen chuckled, and after sitting behind his desk inside the Hokage office, the door creaked open to reveal an old man wearing an arm sling and bandages over his right eye. Hiruzen, what is the meaning of this? Danzo narrowed his eyes. A minute later, no response came. Less than P greater than less than P greater than. Danzo's eyes narrowed into a slit as he asked again with furrowed brows. Lord Hokage, may I ask what it is that you called me for? For a second I thought a dog entered my office and started barking. Turns out it was one of my Hokage advisors. Hiruzen let out a chuckle, making Danzo clench his fists. Lord Hokage, please do not make any unnecessary jokes. If there is nothing, then Before Danzo could turn around and leave, he found his body freezing in place. This is his aura, he thought, and calmed down. Shimura, do not test my patience. Explain, Hiruzen said, and the air inside the room condensed and cooled to a freezing point. With all due respect, I do not know what you mean, Lord Hokage. Danzo. When Hiruzen yelled, Danzo shut his mouth, resolute in denying the accusation. Seeing this, Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. Bang. Suddenly, a kunai was embedded into the door behind Danzo. Danzo looked back indifferent, and a vein on Hiruzen's forehead snapped. Humph. Swoosh. Another kunai flashed through the air, but this time, it didn't hit anything. Lord Hokage, Danzo said with a tone sharp as the kunai he was pinching with his thumb and index finger. The kunai tip was only a centimeter away from his left eye, and if he was a bit late, he would have to bandage both of his eyes. Now, will you speak? Forgive this old man, but I really don't know what you're talking about. Hiruzen sighed and grumbled under his breath. If this continued, he'd have to spend the rest of the day arguing with this old man. A root ninja was found nearby when the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki went on a rampage. Explain why a root ninja was walking around in broad daylight. We have a new recruit in Root, and he didn't know the rules, Danzo explained. Furthermore, he is not officially recruited into Root, so Root has no responsibility for his actions. Hiruzen stared at Danzo after the latter finished talking. I know he's behind this. He's behind the disappearance of the civilian families as well, but I don't have any evidence. They really did vanish like ghosts. Suddenly, Hiruzen remembered a librarian with reading glasses. After Naruto started visiting Izuku's library, no one dared to visit that library. Even Izuku himself disappeared. Danzo, I can't believe you would touch the only civilian family that has ties to Lord Second. Ha. Hiruzen sighed and looked one last time at Danzo. You are dismissed. Thank you very much, Lord Hokage. Danzo curtly bowed and opened the door to leave. As Hokage, I should help my underlings if they are having trouble. I will send a team of Anbu to your root base of operations. They will treat you well, Hiruzen said and waved his hand to summon the Anbu. Fush. You heard me. Follow Danzo Shimura around, and don't leave his side. I fear that something bad might happen to him, Hiruzen ordered, and the team of Anbu bowed their heads to show that they understood. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Danzo squeezed out with indifference, but his fists were shaking and his eyes were widened to the maximum. If a kid saw him, he would cry and yell, "Monster!" As Danzo and the Anbu team left the office, Hiruzen let out a sigh and sipped at the cup of tea on his table. Then he recalled what happened earlier. Naruto was able to calm himself down. Hiruzen mused and remembered Minato's last words. Lord Third, I believe that Naruto will cough. He will one day cough. Master the fox's power. Please treat him well, not as a weapon, but cough, but as a hero. Hiruzen bowed his head. Maybe you are right, Minato. One day, the boy will be able to master the fox's power. And when that day dawns, Hiruzen turned to look at the setting sun over the horizon. Maybe Konoha's dream will be realized.